From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, the coronavirus is infecting new Hoosiers every day. Tonight, hear from one woman who says the virus's impact lasts well beyond the last cough.
Topping our lineup this Friday, long-term remote work could be the new future as companies weigh the benefits and the risks. What could lead to your home becoming your office permanently? And one man urging others to double-check the information that they're taking in, why he wishes he would have taken COVID-19 more seriously. And as companies continue to try and stay afloat amid this pandemic, there is a new push to support Hispanic-owned businesses. How you can help keep these places open.
Getting COVID-19 is tough enough, but some survivors are still dealing with the effects of the virus months after beating it. More now from WRTV's Kelsey Anderson.
So it was not pleasant, but it was not severe.
Nikki Privet tells me she was diagnosed with COVID-19 in April.
The worst and most bothersome symptom I had was just that my eyes hurt to move back and forth or to open and close. Like they just seemed swollen and angry.
She thought she was in the clear until several months later when she says her hair was coming out in chunks.
At the end of June, I noticed, girls, our hair always falls out in the shower, but I noticed that more and more was coming out in my hands. And then eventually in July, it became handfuls.
The long-term symptoms are, there's a lot more of them than we expected.
Dr. Natalie Lambert is an associate research professor at Indiana School of Medicine. She says they've found COVID-19 survivors are feeling a wide range of symptoms, including hair loss.
We're finding that hair loss is temporary, so that when the body starts to recover, because it's a huge shock to have COVID-19, the virus impacts many different bodily systems at once.
I hope that all of this is just temporary and that our bodies will learn to fight this.
Working for you, Kelsey Anderson, WRTV.
Lambert says a symptom that is really concerning to her and other researchers is vision changes. She says it's important that you stay in tune with your body and question anything that doesn't feel right. Kyle, a perfect day outside. A little windy, but still so nice.
Little breezy. I gotta say, I did grab the jacket for walking with the dog this morning. And I brought it with me to work this afternoon because it's going to be another chilly night. We've got that sunshine out there now, but those cool afternoons with the clear skies, that spells some chilly temperatures through the overnight and to start off the weekend. We are at 67 right now in Indy. It is 70 in Bloomington and Lafayette at 68. We find temperatures in the middle 60s for you in Zionsville, 65 right now in New Pal and Greenfield. There's that breeze that Amanda was talking about out of the north and northeast, around 15 miles per hour. Once we get to sunset, which is a little before 8 o'clock tonight, it will begin to subside a little bit. You can see that in the evening planning forecast. Those temperatures 63 at 7 o'clock will get quickly into the upper 50s. Heading out to a football game, you'll want to have that jacket along. We are at 55 by 10 o'clock with clear skies still in place. And again, those winds should taper off out of the northeast about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Eventually down to 43 in the city. I think we will have some outlying areas, especially northern locations, that could dip down into the 30s. So can't rule out a little bit of patchy frost first thing on Saturday. There is a warming trend in the forecast. After a cool start to the weekend here, we will actually get above average heading into next week.
Let's start the news feed. Confirmed cases of coronavirus have hit 30 million worldwide. Johns Hopkins University says more than half are in 3 countries. That's it: India, Brazil, and the United States. Well, the head of the World Food Program is warning that millions of people are closer to starvation. He says conflict, climate change, and COVID are the reason why. He is urging more help from billionaires and donor nations. The White House had a plan to send 650 million masks across the country in April, but it's a plan they abandoned. Washington Post reports 5 reusable masks would have been sent to every residential address in the U.S. The White House worried sending those masks would have created panic. Well, there is a new push to acknowledge the greater impact of racism on health. 3 Democratic lawmakers created the Anti-Racism and Public Health Act. It would create 2 new parts of the CDC, a national center for anti-racism to research health disparities and develop policies to close the divide, and a new program within the CDC's Center for Injury Prevention and Control focused on preventing law enforcement violence. The bill also calls on the federal government to declare racism a public health crisis. Many state and local governments have already done that. The American Public Health Association says that federal action would identify racism as an issue of national importance.
I think the goal is to try to get us to take our heads out of the sand and not be afraid to call racism for what it is.
Dr. Georges Benjamin says that the pandemic has shown the extent of racism as a health issue, pointing to issues that prevent people of color from getting tested, to the apprehension that black men face when it comes to putting on a mask because it can be seen as threatening. Now, he says the stress can raise blood pressure and lead to a wide range of health issues.
If you actually go in and understand their life experiences, they have high degrees of stress. Stressing changes a whole range of bodily hormones that have negative impacts on the body.
The American Public Health Association declared systemic racism a public health crisis in June, shortly after George Floyd's death. A Senate version of the bill has been referred to committee. All right, next on our lineup, long-term remote work could be the new future as companies weigh the benefits and the risks. What could lead to your home becoming your office permanently? Companies are trying to figure out what working remotely will look like long term. Facebook expects half of its workforce to work remotely within the next 10 years. Now that can mean both positives and negatives.
We actually have the ability to diversify the workforce in a way that we never really could before because of the constraints that are around housing.
Now some of the positives: diversity, flexibility, cheaper cost of living, and work-life balance. Many companies could end up following in the footsteps of big tech and go with a corporate head office and communal space for teams to get together.
Right now, that getting together might look like once a week, but if these teams start to decentralize, that getting together might look like once a month, the entire team flies in.
There are a range of taxing mental health issues arising from COVID-19, and working from home for prolonged periods of time is one of them.
Now, some workers may not work well at home. JP Morgan just announced productivity and creativity have taken a hit. Some of their employees are now being required to return to offices next week. Salary experts say you may be able to use long-term remote work as a negotiation tool if your company frees salaries or had cuts or furloughs. Senior managers are worried about retaining top talent.
From the get-go, we're seeing it advertised. We're seeing that companies that are giving us openings and requisitions to work on are talking about it right away.
Now, if you're changing jobs and starting remotely, job experts say it's important to ask about the long term. If the position will stay remote, be hybrid, or will eventually return to the office full time. All right, let's get back to our lineup. And one man is urging others to double check information that they're taking in. Why he wishes he would have taken COVID-19 more seriously. Let's start the news feed with some bad news for Bluebell Ice Cream. The company fined $17.25 million. Bluebell pleaded guilty to a pair of misdemeanor counts. This is tied to a listeria outbreak involving the company. Pandemic quarantining, meaning candy makers having a big year. Halloween chocolate in particular seeing a big boost. Experts point to people shopping at grocery stores more often as a reason for the spike. New York City students are still at home. The city's mayor decided to delay most in-person classes again. He says the city's just not fully ready to handle all the obstacles. NYC will start sending some students back to class on September 29th. A new report from the CDC is raising a new health concern. That report says that pregnant women who are hospitalized with coronavirus face an increased risk of giving birth prematurely. The agency's data shows 13% of live births for COVID-positive moms were preterm. Obesity is a growing issue in America. 12 states now have 35% or more of their population considered obese. It was 9 states in 2018, 6 states in 2017. In 2020, people who are obese are at a higher risk to have complications from COVID. Now, those problems are having a big impact on minority groups. More than 35% of black adults in 34 states are obese. 15 were on the highest end among Hispanics. The CDC says the disparities show the need to remove barriers to healthy living.
You're essentially changing the environment so that the easier behavior, the default behavior, is one that will encourage a healthier food consumption and exercise.
Now, the group Trust for America's Health says the solution is complicated. It says those in education, Parks and Rec, and public health need to work together. Now, the group wants to expand programs like ethnic approaches to community health, WIC, SNAP, free school meals, and CDC obesity prevention programs.
So if we expanded those programs, we actually would save money because those programs lead to fewer medical costs, reduced expenses in the healthcare system, which are very high for people who have both obesity and food insecurity.
Now, some groups have criticized SNAP for allowing recipients to purchase soda, junk food, and other high-calorie, low-nutrition foods. Now, it contradicts proven obesity reduction tactics like adding taxes to sugar-sweetened beverages and cutting junk food marketing to kids. In 2019, the USDA had figures around 10% when it came to food insecurity. Since COVID, that number could be as high as 25%, according to a census survey.
The pandemic has caused many plans to be put on hold when it comes to inspiring our future workforce. That is something, though, we as a community cannot afford. Junior Achievement of Central Indiana is changing its course to continue to provide these opportunities to students. This is video from last year's Job Spark event. Junior Achievement of Central Indiana empowers students towards career paths through career exploration, employable life skills, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and philanthropy through hands-on learning opportunities. For the past 5 years, Junior Achievement has sparked job interests in 8th grade students through a career expo hosted at the fairgrounds. This year, this will be offered virtually next week for 10,000 students. Students will be able to take part in interactive learning experiences from different industries like manufacturing, agriculture, business, finance, law, government, tourism, tech, and health sciences.
One thing we don't want to happen and can't afford to have happen is for our young people to stop being inspired and to focus too much on the unknowns and challenges of today. We want to give them the opportunity to really focus on the amazing opportunities that they have for tomorrow.
Junior Achievement's goal is for every student to have a post-secondary plan that leads them to a career opportunity for future success. The JA Job Spark 2-day Career Expo will take place September 22nd and 23rd. Depending on the industry they choose to learn more about, those students will then learn skills and personal attributes needed for those careers that are forecasted to be in high demand when they graduate high school. Join WRTV and the Indiana Black Expo for a free Zoom webinar on preparing for job interviews in the virtual environment. It's this Monday from noon until 2 p.m., presented by Cummins with tips from Hiring Hoosiers partner Spherion Staffing. You can then put what you learned to use at our next virtual Hiring Hoosiers Employment Opportunity Fair. It starts at noon, Tuesday, September 22nd, and it's also free. Companies looking to hire include FedEx, First Merchants Bank, Indianapolis Airport Authority, Lowe's, and many more. For more info and to register, go to IndianaBlackExpo.com. Kyle.
Whether you're on the IU campus in Bloomington or the Purdue campus in West Lafayette, some crystal clear blue sky out there today. Lots of sunshine for us, and get used to it because we are going to see a lot of sunshine here as we go through the next several days. That, of course, including the weekend. Temperature is going to remain a little on the cool side here, especially Saturday at 67 for the high. We'll get into the lower 70s on Sunday. And yeah, it's going to be a chilly start to the weekend here. We've got some locations by Saturday morning. We'll be starting off in the 30s, around 37 in Noblesville and Kokomo, 39 degrees in Lafayette. Can't rule out a little bit of that patchy frost out there while you're at 41 in Danville and 42 in Columbus. Certainly a little below average for this time of year. Saturday brings us a lot of sunshine. The temperatures remain cool, though, just not going to be as breezy. Temperatures upper 50s at noon. We'll get to the middle to upper 60s for that afternoon high. Average high 77, so we'll miss it by about 10 degrees in the city, close to 70 in Columbus and Lafayette at 68. A little cool to head to the pool here for the final weekend of summer, but maybe you're heading out on the lake on Sunday. Lots of sunshine there. Afternoon temperatures will make their way into the lower and middle 70s. That lake temperature in the lower 70s. While our weather's quiet, We've actually gone into the Greek alphabet now. We got beta, which may make landfall here as we go into next week into portions of Texas. Here's a look at our 7-day planning forecast. Not a drop of rain to be found. Temperatures will be moderating as we head into next week. Those highs getting back to around 80 degrees by Wednesday and Thursday. Chris?
A man who didn't think getting COVID-19 would be a big deal says he wishes he could go back in time. He got sick in June. He's still recovering today. And he told Alexa Liacco what he would do differently if he knew he'd end up on oxygen.
It was a warm June night in Arizona. Scottsdale bars had just reopened after quarantine when Jimmy Flores got a call from some friends.
They said, yeah, it's really busy. Come on through.
The group went out to dinner, then stopped at a bar.
There was about, 150 to 200 people there. We had our little table, and it was close proximity.
Flores says he didn't wear a mask or social distance like most others at the bar.
The bar didn't have enough cups to serve for everyone there, so we got impatient waiting for cups and decided to just drink, and share shots.
COVID-19 had shut down much of the country, but on what seemed like a typical night out, Flores wasn't thinking about the virus.
Before this was happening on the East Coast, like with New York or, all these other major cities, we were like, yeah, I guess it's going on, but, nothing's happening here. I was like, I'm young, I feel like I'm invincible to this. I don't think I'm gonna get it.
48 hours later, that changed.
I woke up in the middle of the night with, my body was sweating. I had 103 fever. And I'm like, I'm really sick, really, really sick.
Flores tested positive for COVID-19. Days later, he ended up in the hospital, hooked up to oxygen.
If I breathed in too much, I would just have a massive cough attack, which led me to have just massive headaches. And then when that happened, I would have a panic attack, so that would even collapse my lungs even more.
Flores documented both the physical and the mental toll the virus took on his social media.
I did not take it seriously at all. And now that I have this, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
Couldn't even go to the restroom because I would have a coughing attack.
He says the time spent sitting alone in his hospital bed left him with a lot of questions.
What is this thing? Why can't I breathe? Is the hype really real? Because during this time, I didn't know anyone that had COVID.
Unfortunately, cases like Jimmy's are more common than you'd think. One study found that more than 5,000 people landed in the hospital and more than 800 people have died across the world from COVID-19 because of misinformation about the virus. And that misinformation can come from anything from reading an online article to rumor and stigma in your community.
Especially in America, right? We're a unique country. We're very individualistic here.
Jimmy is still documenting his recovery to encourage others to sift through the misinformation online.
I actually spoke with doctors that were next to me, and I was in the trenches at the hospital, and I asked a lot of questions, right? And I trusted what they had to say, because I survived.
Flores says he's had several commenters consider wearing masks or changing their behavior after seeing what he endured, but it hasn't all been positive.
I was getting hate mail and I was getting love mail.
Despite all the opinions and misconceptions about COVID-19, Flores lived it, and he says he will now live to help others avoid his same pain.
I don't have any regrets, right? If I would have never gone through that experience, then I would have never had the ability to help other people, thousands of people around the country, change their mind.
I'm Alexa Liacco.
Alexa, thank you. Let's start the news feed. And a new study says the rich are getting richer in this pandemic. The Institute for Policy Studies found America's billionaires saw their fortunes skyrocket 29% over the past 6 months. Well, we may have some insight on what the flu season will look like here based on what it's done in other parts of the world. The CDC says that social distancing may have kept cases at historic lows. They looked at data from Australia, Chile, and South Africa, where flu season is typically April to July. Well, Pine Sol has some power. The government adding Pine Sol's multi-surface cleaner to its list of products deemed effective against COVID-19. The product is effective against the virus with a 10-minute contact time on hard, porous surfaces. Now, finally, in our lineup today, as companies continue to try and stay afloat amid the pandemic, there's a new push to support Hispanic-owned businesses. How you can help keep these places open. A police officer is finally heading home after a 3-month battle with COVID-19. Sergeant Hito Bazan of the Houston Police Department left the hospital with a police escort and reunited with his family alongside a cheering crowd. He believes he contracted the virus on the job. He spent 55 days on a ventilator and he lost 56 pounds. Through rehab, he had to relearn how to walk and talk. Well, it is Hispanic Heritage Month, and sites like Yelp and Nextdoor are encouraging people to support Hispanic-owned businesses in their communities. This week, Yelp launched a tag that allows businesses to mark themselves as Latinx-owned. Nextdoor is teaming up with the We Are All Human group to provide resources to Hispanic-owned small businesses. They're also providing free advertising during the month. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce represents more than 4 million Hispanic-owned businesses. It says that Latino business owners have been hit particularly hard during the pandemic and need support. Many have limited relationships with banks and are in neighborhoods considered challenging to lend to. Now, many were left out of the Paycheck Protection Program.
The round one, we saw many Latino businesses were really largely left out of those opportunities. Half of our businesses have banking relationships. If you did not have a bank relationship, many of them were shut out.
Now, on average, Hispanic-owned businesses only have about 27 days worth of capital reserved. 1 in 4 have had to close at least temporarily since the pandemic began.
Our Latino-owned businesses provide jobs for our community. They also pay taxes and make investments in their community. And these businesses are really the lifeblood of consumer spending.
According to a study by Stanford, Latino-owned businesses contributed $500 billion to the U.S. economy in the past decade. Well, there is one thing both presidential candidates agree on: removing a law that some consider the most important on the internet. On Monday, we'll show you the argument to hold social media companies more accountable when it comes to fake news and misinformation.
Sunny today, and we get to enjoy a lot more sunshine for our Saturday. It will be a cool start, though. Those temperatures making their way back into the middle and upper 60s for an afternoon high. And we do have a warming trend in the 7-day planning forecast. Also, look at all that sunshine coming our way. Hardly any clouds until we get toward about the middle of next week, and that'll be about the only change as highs get to around 80 by Wednesday. Thanks for joining us here on the news at 5:30.